Hey friends, Kevin here, and today we're going to talk about all-wheel drive minivans, cargo vans for adventuring and doing van life. They do exist, but is it something that you actually need? Let's get to it. Now, before I got into doing van life and adventuring, I didn't even realize that all-wheel drive versions of these vans even existed. They're pretty rare and they're pretty hard to find, but they are out there, and they were made by several different of the manufacturers over the years. But first, we need to go over what the difference is between all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive. Now, someone mentions all-wheel drive and you think about this all-terrain travel and going over rocks and going, having these great adventures like you do in full-size pickup trucks that are lifted and in Jeeps and things like that. All-wheel drive is a little bit different. Basically, if you've never had an all-wheel drive car, automobile of any type before, it's going to run in two-wheel drive mode. Generally, it's going to be front-wheel drive. It's going to be front-wheel drive on all minivans, except for a Chevrolet Astro. And it's going to be rear-wheel drive if you're dealing with a bigger cargo-type van. And that's the way it's going to be. You're not going to have any control over it. The vehicle decides all of this for you. So what's going to happen when it senses some wheel slippage is it's going to go from two-wheel drive to a version of four-wheel drive, shall we say, all-wheel drive, and it's going to throw some power to those other two wheels to give you a little more stability. Now, if you've ever been in a real four-wheel drive vehicle, you have the option to run it in two-wheel drive, and you have 4 high and 4 low. And 4 high is basically for going at a reasonable speed, and 4 low is a very low speed. It's what you see people be able to pull themselves out of when they only have 1 wheel on the ground and 3 up in the air, or they're stuck in a lot of mud and things like that. So let me stress this, on an all-wheel drive system, you do not have 4 low. It is basically going to run in 2 high or 4 high. So it can help you in some areas, but you're not going to be all-terrain vehicle with these all-wheel drive vehicles. But hey, right now, take a moment, go down in the comments and let me know if you even knew that all-wheel drive versions of these vans even existed, and put a comment, yes, I think I may need one of these, or want one of these, or no, I don't think I really need all-wheel drive on my adventure van. First, we'll talk about the pros, because it certainly doesn't hurt to have an all-wheel drive minivan or cargo van. And it may get you out of a pinch every once in a while. But here are the cons. One, it's going to be very hard to find, especially in some regions of the country, because they just didn't make a lot of these all-wheel drive vans. I had it in my head when I started this that that's what I needed, and that's what I was searching for. And every time I drove one, I was disappointed, because generally they are pretty ragged out. They are in pretty bad shape when you do run across them. So I finally decided that I was never going to get this started if I didn't buy something, so I found a good two-wheel drive minivan and took off on my first adventure. And still in the back of my head was, I'm going to have this as soon as I find an all-wheel drive version. I'll sell this one, I'll switch out to the all-wheel drive one, and I just never could find a good one. And as my trips went on, I end up from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. I end up to Mexico, I end up to Canada, I end up in the West, I end up in Utah, bouncing up roads and canyons, and I never had an issue with only having two-wheel drive. That's not to say I won't get stuck someday. I will, because I'm a little adventurous. When you start weighing maybe some of the cons with having an all-wheel drive vehicle, one, it's probably going to cost you more money when you do find it. 2, your maintenance costs are going to be much higher, because now you have more parts that can break, wear out. So you're going to have to put more money into it to keep it going. And your gas mileage is going to suffer. And on a minivan, this may only be the difference between 18 miles a gallon and 20 miles a gallon. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but you're talking 5 or 10% of your gas mileage. And if you're doing a lot of long trips, you're really getting out and going around the country, that gas mileage hit, it's going to make a difference. And quite honestly, you're going to spend more in that than you would be spending if you went somewhere and got stuck and actually had to have somebody pull you out or have a tow truck come out and yank you out of somewhere. So you're going to have more expense if you go the all-wheel drive route. For me personally, had I gone the all-wheel drive route, it probably would have made me overconfident in some of the places I have gone to, and I probably would have pushed it way further than I should have. Maybe that's just a guy thing, but we tend to push it with things like that sometimes. If you have or have had an all-wheel drive version of one of these vans that you've used out adventuring, out exploring, I'd love to hear your opinions, whether you think I'm right, whether you think I'm wrong on my view of this. If I fell into a deal, would I buy one? Absolutely. But no longer do I feel like I did the first couple of years, thinking that I needed to have one, because as it turns out, I just didn't. And I've been able to go everywhere I wanted to go to. Anything that pops into your head that you think may be something for me to do, an ideal for me to do a video on, or something I could cover that would help you out if you're thinking about doing van life or just starting to do van life, never hesitate to put that down in the comment. I always read the comments. I do my best to reply to everybody. If you're wondering what to watch next, drop down the description. You'll see links to all of the recent videos on different topics, something that may interest you, and we'll talk soon.